Yes, I had to make this video about spinal decompression and a special warning that all spinal decompression devices are not equal. No, they are not equal. Okay, let me explain how and why. First of all, we have to go over the anatomy of the disc, which very briefly. The disc consists of two parts. It consists of the nucleus, which is a jelly type of substance that sits in the middle of the disc, and then it's surrounded by fibrocartilage, okay, which kind of holds that gel in place, that nucleus in place. So what can happen is that you can get degeneration of the cartilage. As the cartilage degenerates, the disc thins out. That gel can then ooze out into that degenerated area of cartilage, or what I like to call a spinal cavity. There are essentially tears within that cartilage, as hopefully you could see here. So when you get those tears, the gel can ooze out into the tears, just like if you squeezed a jelly donut, you can imagine the gel oozing out into the dough. That's the same thing that happens here. And then as that continues to happen, the disc thins out more and more. In other words, it degenerates. And this happens over a period of years usually, unless there's trauma involved. And then as that gel starts to ooze out, it eventually starts to bulge or protrude or herniate or prolapse. All different stages. Okay, just think of it as mild, moderate, and severe herniations. You have the spinal nerve exiting from the spine through the neuroforamina, okay, right over there, right by the disc, and therefore that disc can press on the nerve. So when it does, that can cause pain, tingling, numbness, cold sensation, hot sensation. It can cause weakness of muscles. So what needs to be done is basically the challenge is to get the toothpaste back into the tube. You squeezed out the toothpaste, how do you get it back? Well, the only way to get it back is to set up a vacuum. And that's what spinal decompression, or I will call my treatment called VAX-D, vertebral axial decompression. Decompression is a reversal of the pressure in the disc from a positive pressure to a negative pressure. So you're decompressing. Okay, you're opening it up. So you're basically going like this. Okay, you're stretching it. Now a lot of people would consider that traction. It's not traction. It's a logarithmic type of pressure, meaning that what it basically does, or what VAX-D does, is as it stretches out the disc, logarithmically, not linearly. Logarithmically is exponentially. So in other words, it's applying a little bit of pressure to your spine, and what that's doing is that the little bit of pressure is being translated or magnified within the discs, so that it lowers the pressure in the disc from an average of about plus 200 millimeters of mercury and reduces that to minus 150. Minus pressure is a vacuum. So it literally sucks that nucleus back into its position, thereby taking pressure off of the spinal nerve. Okay, that's the bottom line. It's very simple, or it's a simple type of procedure. Okay, unfortunately what's happened is when Dr. Dyer, who was the Deputy Minister of Health in Canada at the time, when he invented it for himself and for his wife, who both had herniated discs and did not want to undergo surgery. So he invented this. He was, by the way, he's a physicist as well as a physician, tongue-tied there. And what he did was he invented this machine called VAX-D, vertebral axial decompression, that can decompress the lumbar spine. Now, this was proven actually in a laboratory which was made into an operating room. And it was a patient who underwent surgery, but prior to undergoing surgery agreed to be placed on the VAX-D machine, where they inserted a cannula, and inside that cannula they put electrodes in order to measure the pressure within the disc while that patient was under vertebral axial decompression. And lo and behold, it lowered the pressure from minus 200 down to plus 200 down to minus 150. So it decompressed the lumbar spine. And VaxD is the only treatment to date that has been proven to lower the pressure to minus 150. In other words, to decompress the lumbar spine. Now, there are other manufacturers and other providers that claim that they decompress the spine, but they've never been proven. As a matter of fact, if you look under these manufacturers' websites, you will see a list of their supposed research, and the study that was done on VaxD was published by Ramos and Martin in the Journal of Neurology in 1994. And that was the study where they took the patient and prior to surgery put him on VaxD. These other companies are quoting that study. So they're saying, well, it worked for VaxD, it works for us. Well, that's absurd. You can't do that. You can't make those claims. And that's why the FDA, it's taken a long time, but the FDA has shut down some of these companies. But the machines are still being used, and the providers are still claiming that they decompress the lumbar spine. So they're calling it spinal decompression, when in actuality, a lot of these companies have produced a simple traction device that they built in the 1950s, and then they made it more elaborate, threw some computers on it, some bells and whistles, and they're calling it spinal decompression. It's terribly unfair, it's fraudulent, and unfortunately the patients are the ones who lose because they think that they're undergoing spinal decompression when they're not undergoing spinal decompression. So you have to be careful. I'm not saying that none of these devices work. I'm not saying that none of these devices, except for VaxD, relieve pain. Okay? All I'm saying is that if you definitively want spinal decompression, if you want to know that you are undergoing spinal decompression, then you undergo VaxD, vertebral axial decompression. If you undergo any of the others, you're chancing it. Okay, you're hoping that it actually decompresses the lumbar spine, when in actuality they haven't been proven. Okay, so if you go to any of these other providers, you want to see proof in a peer-reviewed, double-blind study that shows that it decompresses the lumbar spine, and also other studies that show that it was proven to help a certain percentage. In the case of VaxD, it has been proven that 71% of patients from single-level herniations to multi-level herniations, from mild disc bulges to excrusions, have been helped with VaxD, 71% of them. Okay, and these are double-blind studies that have been published in prestigious journals. You don't want to see just a journal or a manufacturer that just publishes it by itself and states that 80% of the patients got better through their type of treatment. Okay, so this is very important, and unfortunately the public really doesn't know. The layperson doesn't know, and that's why I made this recording, in order for you to understand a little bit better the difference between vertebral axial decompression and what people are calling spinal decompression. Spinal decompression has become a buzzword, unfortunately, because of the success of VaxD. I've been providing VaxD. I started in New York in 1995. I was one of the first doctors in the country to provide VaxD, and I still provide it today. It's worked very well. The 71% success rate is accurate. I studied under, or learned under, Dr. Dyer, who was the inventor of VaxD, who subsequently moved to Florida, believe it or not too far from where I am, in Bradenton. He still lives, I believe, the last I heard, in Palm Harbor, and is retired. In any case, that's the story. So hopefully this will give you some extra knowledge as far as spinal decompression, quote unquote. More importantly, vertebral axial decompression. If you have any questions, please give us a call at 941 365-6400. Thanks for watching this recording.